I have to know why! What's the reason for all of this? Why do Xenoblade 1 fans and Xenoblade 2 fans have to keep fighting? I have to find out why!
Think about any game that crosses your mind. What's the general consensus on it? Hollow Knight, a near-flawless masterpiece. Dead Rising 4, a steaming hot pile of shit. Final Fantasy VII, an important piece of JRPG history. That doesn't mean that has to be your opinion on them. We're all different and have our own preferences. Is it okay to not like the game that sold millions of copies and was well received by critics? Absolutely! However, these general opinions aren't exactly a bad thing because there's a reason they exist in the first place. They can help to give you a general idea of what to expect. But as a matter of fact, surface level knowledge doesn't even compare to a hands-on experience. And that leads us to the topic of the video. Xenoblade Chronicles is an extraordinary game with an extremely dedicated following that continues to grow with each passing day. I won't tell deep as to why, I have an entire video on it if you're curious. But its sequel, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, doesn't get the same amount of praise and love. Some people go as far as to call it, as I said in another video, a weeboo trash game. So is it really that bad? Is the hatred it gets well deserved? I will answer that right here and now, by exploring some of the most common complaints about the game. Also, for those who have never played Xenoblade 2 in the past, I'll warn you, I'll keep the spoilers to a medium level. What does that mean? Footage that shows some late game stuff, and I'll discuss certain events and characters from the story without ruining what made them so good. Also, no Torna the Golden Country. I want this to be Xenoblade Chronicles 2 for what it is. If you're ready, let us begin. The game is too anime is perhaps the most iconic criticism towards it. But said description is way too vague. Let's think about it. What exactly does too anime mean? It's Japanese animation, sure, but that's not enough. Because the term anime doesn't close itself to one particular style. This is anime, and everything you see on this screen is anime. From my own personal experience, it can come in different shapes and sizes. From the best stories and animation I have seen, to absolute disgraces that are an insult to watch. Too anime is a form of criticism that doesn't have solid ground to stand on. But that doesn't mean we can't give it shape. I'm very sure that when people say too anime, they usually mean the bad ones that plague the industry. Horrendous art styles, one-note characters, basic forms of humor, over-reliance on cheap fanservice, etc. Unfortunately, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 has some of that. And that's where part of the hate comes from. Let's take a look at the art style. I'm fully aware this is a very subjective thing, but I'm sure we all can agree on how different Xenoblade 2 looks in comparison to its peers. 1 and X may have had extremely ugly character models, but one could tell the art direction inclined itself towards a more realistic style. 2 on the other hand wanted mass appeal, having more vibrant colors with softer and friendlier character models, which makes the game look more childish. Bear in mind, that alone is not inherently a bad thing, especially since Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is still bursting with beautiful landscapes that are a joy to admire, and it's way easier to tell the emotions a character is feeling. But the sharp contrast between these titles is like night and day. The art style itself is not the sole culprit of the too anime argument, but it connects to one of the main reasons. I'd like to ask you, Why is character design important? Characters exist as a medium that helps the player connect with the world, which makes it more immersive. If a character looks bad, then you compromise said connection. I don't know about you, but I find it harder to take something seriously if the character in question looks generic, looks like they were drawn by someone who deserves to be in prison, or they try way too hard to be sexy. I mean, I do love me some mature women. Golly. But this is seriously the most horrid abomination I have seen in my entire life. Look at me in the eyes and tell me this looks remotely good. Deep down you know that's not true. You're just horny and delusional. In the game's defense, if I have to make a list of the designs I like and I don't, I'll say that the good ones will easily get the upper hand. There's a lot of actually great eye candy here to enjoy. The problem is that the bad ones stick out like a sore thumb. That's why the perception of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 being a weeboo trash game exists. And I can actually back it up. Search online for bad character design, and the main protagonists, Rex and Pyra, are the first results you'll see. If your characters are a laughingstock to the overall public, that's not really a good sign, and it can have an effect in more ways than one, as we will see in the next section. Another common complaint I see is that the story is not very good, and to that I will say,
does the river of filth pouring out of your mouth ever stop flowing?
I don't know if we play the same game, but the story of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is beautiful, exciting, and memorable. And there's so many things that help with that. The concept of the plot, a well thought out world building, plot twists that carry a lot of impact, a healthy dose of foreshadowing, and many other references I'd rather not delve into. My favorite part is how well they implemented a core gameplay mechanic into the story and carried out so well. I'm talking about the driver and blade system. I also think that huge emphasis on most, of the main characters are not as bad as some make them out to be. I'll go as far as to say that there are more notable dynamics than in the first game. Their dialogue feels more organic, making it easier to believe that they're all good friends, and everyone has a purpose to be there. And do I even need to go into the main villains? I love Malo so much. His name literally means evil in Latin. That's how you know you're in for a treat. But the rest of them ain't so bad either. They have presence, they are very entertaining, some may be more sympathetic than others, but they do what they need to do. Constantly fuck with you. So yes, this is something I will defend. The story of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is nowhere close to bad. But I understand why the sentiment is there, and that's because it takes a while to lift up. It stumbles a few times and it even embarrasses itself from time to time. With JRPGs, I'm always prepared to have a slow beginning. But let this game be an example of how to drive people away during the first hours. To its credit, the first chapter is not bad at all. It introduces a lot of interesting concepts, it doesn't drag on, and it ends up in a spectacular battle worthy of praise. Chapter 2, however, feels like it takes forever to beat. It throws long cutscenes every 5 minutes. It gives you arbitrary objectives to complete. And at this point, the combat is not even a fraction of what it truly is. I'm not exaggerating. In your first run, it should take you about 8 hours to unlock a mechanic that was available from the get-go in Xenoblade 1. There are other chapters that have their own notable problems. 4 is a mess in its entirety, and 7 overstays its welcome while having the worst area in the game. but 2 in particular is very guilty, because besides dragging itself, it's where the seeds of the 2 anime arguments start to sprout, and in consequence it continues to affect the game. Just like art, humor is a very subjective thing. Personally, I'm all down for lightening the mood with some jokes every now and then. But you need to strike a balance. What kind of humor you use, how you use it, and when you use it. And unfortunately, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 misses the mark sometimes. And when it does, let's just say it's not very pleasant.
Cutie cutie, lovely lovely, blushy crushy, teehee.
One thing is the content of the jokes. Some people will like it and others won't. That is okay. But if you constantly put slice of life humor non-stop, then you lose credibility and the attention of the viewer. This game is a very unique case because you can perceive how radically the tone can change in a matter of seconds. One moment, you have this important cutscene about the meaning of war, while right outside you can have a conversation about mates and being blushy crushy. Chapter 3 turns this around with its themes and exposition, also delivering an insanely iconic and incredible cutscene, one of the best in the entire series, for real. But 10 minutes after that comes Chapter 4, and you have generic anime drama about a tsundere calling you a pervert for a mistake she did. Then you move to the Empire, the guys responsible for giving you a lot of shit at this point, which sounds awesome on paper, but in reality, this entire thing becomes a wet dream for one of your party members. And the saddest part about it is that it wants you to take it seriously. I'm sorry, but no. I don't know how they expected anyone to feel bad about a robot dressed as a maid that you met 30 minutes ago. Especially when the villain of the chapter attacks you with a bigger robot in a maid dress. This is...
Oh, this is too ridiculous for words. Come on.
Yes, exactly! With this, I'm not trying to say that a serious story should be devoid of any laughs and light-hearted moments. No, I actually believe the more genuine emotions one feels, the better. But trying so hard to constantly be funny will only backfire by pushing people away. And Xenoblade Chronicles 2 suffers because of that. That's why Weebu Trash Game is an assigned term. It sucks, because something I will say is that after Chapter 4, the story progressively gets better again, to the point of rivaling the amazing Chapter 3. And not only that, it starts to find better times to deliver comedy. And when it does that, it's actually funny!
Hey, Morag, how about next time you put on a skirt and some heels?
How about you die in a fire, Zeke?
But even if the story and humor get better, we have to discuss a certain kid. Rex is perhaps the most controversial aspect about the narrative, to the point of getting an entire section of the video dedicated to him. The amount of hatred he gets is very notable, and it's very easy to see why a lot of people just want to... First of all, the design. I already mentioned that he looks bad and beyond generic. If I had to describe Rex's basic personality, he's the typical hot-headed anime boy. We have seen that countless times before. We can expect him to say dumb shit, be reckless, and act stupid, which is exactly what he does. These qualities, while simple, make it hard for some to root for him.
Okay, I get it. I'm a terrible disappointment.
In my own personal opinion, I think a lot of this hatred is blown out of proportion, because people tend to forget that Rex is still a child. This behavior should be expected from him. And also, Are we suddenly forgetting his good qualities? He's a 15-year-old who already has his own job and sends his income to his hometown to support them. Someone who gets involved with all these important and powerful people just because he made a promise and wants to save his dying world. What a guy! I do believe that Rex is at his absolute worst during the first half of the game, and it takes a good chunk of time until he starts to become better. Not saying this should change your opinion about Rex, because even if he redeems himself, I understand shounen anime protagonist of the season is a very tiring trope. And it also doesn't help that other party members are much more entertaining than him. But I just wanted to explain that he's not really as awful a protagonist as many make him out to be. Personally, he's not the worst I've ever seen. Not by a mile. There's also one more thing. One more general criticism that is also very tied to Rex. The voice acting of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 can be a mixed bag. I have nothing against the voices themselves. I do think they fit their characters perfectly. What is bad is the direction. Take a shot every time the delivery doesn't match the emotion of a character's face. I can put some of the blame on the lip syncing. Xenoblade 2's facial animations weren't altered to fit better with the English dub, so I can imagine the voice actors had to compromise and do their best possible effort to match the lips of their characters. You have to commend them for that. But the huge difference between both languages makes it inevitable to come across mismatching and awkward deliveries. However, just like pretty much everything else I've mentioned at this point, the voice acting does get better as the story progresses. You can tell the actors were getting a better understanding of their characters, which makes later cutscenes have a bigger impact. But yeah, those first few hours are not very good. Especially in Rex's case, who is almost unbearable to listen to at first. If you combine everything we have seen thus far, it's very easy to see why Xenoblade Chronicles 2 has the true anime and weeaboo trash game reputation. But there's a lot of people out there who can get past that, no problem. And you know, good for them, really! Unfortunately, that's not where the game's problems end. Because the combat of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is fucking amazing. It's challenging, it's addictive, and beyond rewarding. It always has your attention, keeps the adrenaline levels high, and makes you scratch your head in how you approach it. I can go as far as to tell you it's one of the most fun combat systems I've experienced in a JRPG. So what's the problem with it? The fact that you can only enjoy that if you actually manage to understand it, which is easier said than done. To put this in perspective, the core essence of it is about the same from the first game, but even if you already have that experience under your belt, 2 will still challenge you with all the different stuff it brings to the table. This on its own wouldn't be a bad thing, if it wasn't for the fact that the tutorials are beyond horrendous. This isn't anything new to the series, I know, but that doesn't make it any less bad. The combat is already complex as it is, and a few windows of text are not enough to understand what's going on. And you know what's the worst part? Some jackass thought it was a good idea to not let you read the tutorials again after they appear. It's impossible to get everything right on your first attempt, and that lack of knowledge and practice can fuck you up down the road. There's this one boss that outright makes players quit the game. It's a machine that no matter how hard you try, you cannot destroy it. All you have to do is change focus and go for the cables on the back. It's so stupid, but it happens because not many people know that's something you can do. This makes Xenoblade Chronicles 2 a game that in order to understand it, you have to either look for videos online, read articles about it, or have a friend who already beat it explain it to you. Imagine you're playing the game for the first time, and all you know about it are through the tutorials. Now, what can you tell me about elemental arts, elemental affinities, pouch items, affinity charts, driver combos, blade combos, fusion combos, HP barriers, cooldown periods, party gauge, chain attacks, elemental bursts, damage multipliers, full bursts? Is all of this overwhelming? Yes, it is. But these are all very useful mechanics that the game sucks at highlighting their importance. Understanding the combat of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is not an easy task, but it's so worth it. You just never forget your first full burst. Defeating that one boss that gave you so much shit at the beginning of the game, or constantly seeing insane fusion combos because of how well you structure your party and how precise you time your arts. And with how excellent the presentation of the game is, you feel the force of everything. But there's one last thing I have to bring up. Alright, you all know what a gacha is, right? Those Japanese machines that give you a random toy, mobile games that make you spend real money for the chance of getting a JPEG of your favorite characters, or loot boxes, they're the same thing too. Well, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 has that. You can make your characters bond with core crystals for a chance of getting a new blade that has different weapons and elemental affinities. But there's an even smaller chance that you can get what is known as a rare blade. First I have to say, I love the blade system, because it adds so much variety and strategy to the combat. But the gacha aspect soils it, so I just want to know, who was the fucking moron that said, "Ooh yes, Xenoblade 2 definitely needs that"? With mobile and online games I can understand them, because they are constantly changing and adding new stuff. This thing has no place in a single player video game. I mean, sure, it's perfectly viable to get through the game with normal blades. They can get the job done. But let's be real, if you have blades with unique designs, exclusive skills, and give you side quests that focuses on them, then of course people will try to get them at all cost. And this random nature can affect the overall experience. Every blade has these things called field skills, which they can utilize while exploring to give you better items, destroy obstacles, or help you reach new areas. I hate this mechanic, because it doesn't need to exist. On paper it sounds cool, right? Using fire blades to burn spider webs, or wind blades to jump really high. But in reality, all it does is add extra steps to what will be a simple task, or halt your progress in its entirety. It really sucks when your curiosity takes you to new secret areas, only for that joy to stop because you don't have the right skills to continue. Oh, a new mercenary mission? Too bad! You can't do it if you don't have these very specific blades for it. Do you see this panel right here? Well, I can't activate it just like that. I have to go to the menu, equip the necessary electric blades, make sure they have electric mastery, and there we go! Extra steps for a simple button pressing. And it can get worse, because there are times where you will need them to progress through the story. Pray you bonded with enough blades, and pray they have what you need, because not doing so can lead you to a dead end. For me it wasn't so bad this run because I was in New Game Plus, but I'll never forget my first time. All that grinding I needed to do just because I wanted to continue playing. That's what I mean. The gacha system is not bad because, damn, I didn't get Tomboy Anime Girl. It sucks because it's tied to other mechanics that can affect your enjoyment. Even if you don't care about the 2 anime criticism, even if you manage to understand the combat, this is something that can potentially fuck you up, no matter how hard you try. I believe this could have been handled better. There are some blades you can acquire through side quests, and others are given to you through the main story. Why isn't that the case for everyone? It does feel good to randomly get what you wanted, yes, but you know what feels even better? Getting the reward you were looking for through sheer effort and skill. To finish the video, I'll address the final complaint people have about the game. I lied! Nobody in the world has ever complained about Xenoblade Chronicles 2's soundtrack. I just wanted to dedicate an entire section to it. Like, have you ever listened to it? So to answer the name of the video, is Xenoblade Chronicles 2 overhated?
The answer is yes and no.
This is a game that is riddled with problems. An entirely different shift in tone, a poorly explained, hard to understand combat system, and random mechanics that have a chance to mess with your experience. These in particular are more prominent at the beginning. And that's a problem, a major problem. First impressions are extremely important, and if you can't keep someone's attention for long, then you are completely fucked. Xenoblade 2 sucks at this. By the time it gets to the really good stuff, people may have already abandoned it. And that's sad, because beyond all that negativity, there's clear effort. The story's great, the world is interesting, the gameplay is exciting, and the soundtrack is a league on its own. So much love and so much dedication was put into this game. Having to replay it for this video made me appreciate it a whole lot more, to the point where I can say, I love it as much as Xenoblade Chronicles 1. And you already know how much I love that one. To those who already love the game, I'm glad we share similar feelings towards it. To those who still don't like it, that's okay. At the very least I hope you can see things in a different light. And those who want to play it now, be patient. It will take a while, but if you do, you'll experience something that you'll remember forever.